Be successful and comfortable today if I keep myself totally surrounded by people smarter than me. Dr. Bob said to Bill, we must watch our errant tongues. It's comforting to know that the tongue located in a damp area has a tendency to slip when moving fast. We don't learn, little gal I was speaking, and I got a couple here today that come down to spend 2 days with me from Thibodaux, Louisiana. They have a test. So I met them when I spoke there in '91, and we've become really close friends, and they come up and spent some time with Linda and I a couple of 3 months ago. You realize how I treasure that, what you people mean to me? You have no idea what you people mean to me. And so all I say is when you're looking at step 5, look at the nature of your wrongs, not the wrongs. You know, they talk about 12 steps on page 83, but I read them too. I think one of the greatest promises in all our literature is on the 3rd page in step 5, the 12 and 12, where it says, this is the vital step whereby you get the feeling, not the thinking. You get the feeling that you can be forgiven no matter what you have thought or done. Man, what a promise for a drunk. What a promise for a drunk. Said we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. We humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. One is my thinking and one is my actions. I think one of my favorite prayers is, God, I offer myself to Thee to build and do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties as victory over them. Isn't that interesting? I can stop right there. If I don't get rid of my difficulties, there is no victory. There is no victory. So these steps, step 8 says we made a list of all persons we have harmed. It didn't say hurt, it said harm. I can leave here, my friend from Lauderdale, I can tear him to shreds for the next 4 years wherever I travel. And then he gets back to him. And he said, how could a friend hurt me like that? For 4 years it's been harm. Made direct demands to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them. And a demand is to change, it's not an apology. And then we said we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, it doesn't say if we were wrong. It says promptly admitted it, not to explain it. To me, there's an incredible difference between admitting when I'm wrong and explaining it, because eventually I'll have you apologize when you was even there. Step 11 is the first assumption I found in the 12 steps, that we sought through prayer meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. They're assuming we have a conscious contact. Have you? Conscious means awake or aware. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us. What's it say in the book? His will for us is to be happy, joyous, and free. It's in the book. You just got to read and find it. A lot of this stuff is hidden, but it's in it. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. What is a spiritual awakening in the dictionary? A complete transformation of thought. If you've completely changed your way of thinking as a result of these steps, then you got the message to carry. And we practice these principles in all our affairs. You see, when I come in, I practiced affairs with no principles. And this old bird said, no, we got a whole different approach to that. But I want to go into a couple of things that tell you just what all has happened. I give my full name for a good reason. But 4 years ago, a fellow that lived way back in the southern part of New Brunswick got 4 of my cassette tapes from a taper in Guelph, Ontario. And I'm talking about the value of tapes and the value of your name. His wife said he listened to these tapes every day, and he's never had a drink since. It's 24 years. And she said wherever they went, he'd say, put that new tape in. And he'd listen to it. He found out where I was born. And so he got our email somehow, and he sent an email to Linda. And he said, I don't know much about this Lew anymore, but I wonder if you could get him to phone me. So I did. And he said, told me who he was. He said, my name's Ed Kearney. He said, you said in your tape you were born in a little railroad town called Roostic Junction. I said, yes. He said, did you know Fred Saunders? I said, yeah, he was Mom and Daddy's neighbor. Well, he said, his sister, Velma, was my mother. I said, I hope you're sitting down. She was my mom, too. This all happened because of my name. I just don't know how the world feels that we've turned 2 million people loose on with no last names. If you don't know your last name, how the hell do you even find yourself? That little lady that I hit in the face when I was 16 and a half years of age. 1991, she phoned Linda and I and said Daddy had died. She said, would you and Louie come back and pick me up and bring me up and spend her final years with us? The furthest she'd ever been from home in her whole life was 23 miles. She'd never been on a bus in her life or nothing. And we got her down through a snowstorm in February and got her on an airplane, and that took off, and what an experience, you know, if you could have watched her. And she come out, and a lot of people don't realize the weather's nice in Vancouver. I play golf every day of the year. They think it's below zero up all over Canada, but it isn't. And that 65-mile region is beautiful. And 4 years after she was out there one night when we were going back to our place, she took my face in her hands. She said, Louie, I love you. It took a long time to get that back. But I'll tell you the crowning thing. So we were sitting beside her bed holding her hand when she took her final breath. Linda said to her, she was looking at it, she said, it's okay, Mom, you can go. And she said, okay. And she went. And a government agent brought her will over to where she was at the nursing home. And she was still laying there in the bed. And he handed it to me and he said, your mother's made you the executor of her estate. And I just a little laughed. And I opened it up. She said, I leave my entire estate to my son, Louis Ralph, or my estate 50% to my son, Louis Ralph Fenimore, and 50% to my daughter-in-law, Linda Dawn Fenimore. We opened it up, and there was $200,000 that she saved from a labor's wages during the Depression. And then being in the treatment business, and I listen to more people blaming their parents today than I could just throw up. Your parents did the best they could do with what they had. Things have changed. We live in a different world today. We don't learn a great deal from what we see on the movie, reading the book. You know, it's like the 200s in Ontario. This plane flew them into this lake and they landed and taxied up to the dock, and the hunters got out and the pilot told him, he said, I'll be back, get you next Wednesday, and remember, 2 moose is all we can get out of here on this plane. So next Wednesday he came in, he landed, taxied up to the dock. There they were, and they had 3 moose. He said, I told you, we can't get 3 moose, you 200s and your gear on this plane and get out of here. They said, don't give us that stuff. We heard it last year from the other pilot, we gave him $500 and he took our 3 moose, so the guy went for it. Loaded the 3 moose, the 200s and their gear, and they went down the lake and off of the lake and cleared the trees, and away they went. They went about 12,000 yards and crashed. When they come to, one hunter said to the other, where are we? He said, 1,000 yards further than we got last year.